landing a major job producing one of the first ever groundbreaking national talk shows, and then suddenly finding yourself pregnant and unprepared. That's exactly what happened to one woman, which sparked a chain of life-changing events that led to her new book, To Have and Not to Hold. The book's author joins me now. Please welcome Lorri Benson to the show. Welcome. Thank you so much. You were a brand new producer for Donahue, the Phil Donahue Show, one of the first ever talk shows.
Right.
You found yourself unexpectedly pregnant. How did you get through that, and how did you make that decision to give up your baby for adoption?
It was really as difficult a time in my life as I can imagine ever having. It was, you know, on your mind constantly. I was old enough, I was 24 years old, so I could have done this even on my own. There was no guarantee with the father that anything was going to happen, and I had no family in Chicago at the time. So towards the end, you know, it was 9 months of what to do. And I just felt like I was working nights, weekends, long hours, and it just seemed like for the baby, for her to have a life, that was the decision to make.
There is that moment in the book when you found the adoptive parents that you really thought, and that really brought you a sense of peace, and it seemed like it righted everything for you at that moment.
Well, mostly because I had thought that we were going to be able to have a little contact. This wasn't the age of open adoptions, but I had, you know, written them a letter, and it seemed like they were very amenable to staying in touch. And then at 6 months, I got a letter from the agency saying the adoption is now closed. There'll be no more contact. And that was when the emotional upheaval and the real, you know, the door has closed. And that was a few years before we were able to get things going again.
Was that part harder, that 6 months later, than it was initially for you to walk away from that baby? Because when you passed that nursery that last time, that was heartbreaking.
It was beyond, it was a gut-wrenching upheaval, you know, that I've never experienced since. And no, that was a terrible week. I didn't sign the papers for a week because I started to have, you know, second thoughts and all of that. So that was terrible. Once I signed the papers, I had, you know, processed it so much that it almost seemed to close down a door on my emotions. And so I was okay until that 6 month period, and then it was like over, and that was terrible.
Now, I have shared with you, and I should say that my mother found herself pregnant unexpectedly when she was 19 and in college, and gave me up for adoption. And I have since gone on. It very much mirrors that experience that you had, where I found my biological family and have this beautiful relationship with my mother. But she once said to me when we first met, she said, "Giving you up for adoption was the most unselfish thing I've ever done, but it was also the most selfish for me that I've ever done." And I thought about that, and at first I was like, no, it's not selfish. But then she said, I wasn't ready to have a baby, and there were things that I needed to do and to finish.
And how old was she?
She was 19. And so I look at that and I thought, she's right.
I think a lot of birth mothers are in that situation. It wasn't quite mine because like I said, 24 years old, plenty of people are married and having families at 24. But I wasn't there, and I had no family around to help me. And it was really a matter of this baby was going to be with a nanny, if I could even afford that, or just child, you know, daycare all the time. It was just too consuming of a job. I could have quit my job. But, you know, I went through all those options.
You did.
I mean, they're outlined in the book. I really did a producer's job of researching.
And it really is personal.
Yes.
So personal to you. I know people offered to help in all different ways. Phil Donahue himself said, no, we'll make it work.
We'll
just
make
keep
it work.
The baby.
And I wanted that. That's why I waited a week, because I thought, oh, he's going to make this work. But in reality, producing a national talk show, what was I going to have a baby on my hip when I was, you know, out in the studio and I mean, it just wasn't going to work. I knew that. So.
Well, let's get to the really good part. What is tell us about your relationship now with your daughter and her family since your reunion when she was about 16.
16 they came. Her adoptive family was completely supportive of her curiosity and her need to know. There she is,
right here.
Yes, and it was an amazing reunion. The freaky thing was that her mother and I had this connection.
Yes.
And it became this, as time went on, and we became this blended family, all really because of her generosity and the adoptive mother's generosity, and Temple, her husband. We became, it was like we were meant to be together. And somehow, how were these families ever going to get together? Well, Katie was the
Right.
reason we all got together. And we are completely a blended family now.
And what's happening? Well, we should say that bond with Anne. There is this moment in the book when you get that letter and it's signed,
Our daughter's mother.
our daughter's mother, and I lost it at that point.
I mean, you know, I know she's a saint, but with this book, I'm hoping that people can see that to have that open, embracing feeling of like going for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not have an ideal situation,
Right.
but go for it because it can really enhance everybody's life. Yeah.
What is happening with Katie now?
Well, she just had her second baby. And Anne is sharing grandmotherhood as well with me, and so we, you know, we're FaceTiming
Look
all
at
the
this
time.
beautiful
and-
picture of the two mothers.
Yeah, that was Katie's wedding, obviously, and yeah, and there's the
And then there's
first
two mothers
Annabelle.
with
Yes.
the two grandmothers.
Yep, exactly. And now we have a new one also, and there he is, little Owen.
This, oh, is that adorable? This is the first book in a series of 3.
Yes.
What would you like viewers to know about the second book?
Well, I want you to be a part of it, and I'm looking for stories, adoptees, adoptive parents, birth parents. I'd like to have this be a collection of sort of what works and what doesn't, and what can we learn from people's experiences to help people that are considering entering this world.
You would have liked to have that as well.
Oh
and I know
my gosh.
My mother would have as well, to
Yes.
know what other mothers, what other adoptees were thinking. and-
Exactly, and what maybe worked better than this, or you know, those kind of things. I think it's a really important resource to have.
But in the end, love really worked and a lot of patience. And
Yes.
Beautiful story. Thank you
Oh,
for sharing.
thank you. This is great.
Thank you for bringing up a lot of great memories for me. Everyone in today's studio audience is going home with a copy of Lorri's book, To Have and Not to Hold. It's a terrific read. Please enjoy it.
Thank you.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
And if they want to write in for
To tell their stories.
to tell their stories.
Wonderful.
Yes.
The group of local girls who took their fight against bullying to Washington, D.C. lawmakers will be right back.